All right, y'all. Welcome to the next installment of the Dismount podcast. And today, the squad is saddling up and we are talking fear. You don't get goosebumps? Come on now. All right. So, right into it. We're going straight off the bat right now for us. Once again, as always, this podcast is a don't trust us, trust yourself. And we're not here to literally tell you how to fight fear. Fear is going to be different for all of us. And the one thing that we can always share with everybody here is that all of you have the answers. It's just whether or not you decide to unlock them for yourselves. That's going to be the premise of this podcast from the day until the end. It is not that I'm going to teach you exactly how to do these things, but I might give you some pieces of the puzzle from my bullshit that might help you with your bullshit.
I like that.
You like that?
I like that.
Wow. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, cool.
So,
glad we settled that.
Where has fear lingered for you most in your life? And for me, it's pretty funny. Like our first episode we did, which was the Titty Makes Us Watch Movies, literally drops me into like the two biggest fears that I had at that time, which was I didn't want to be wrongfully incarcerated and basically tortured. And I did not want to go through a life where I built this entire family with someone and then they want a divorce and it's just like, what the fudge are we doing? This is horrible. There's
Sorry.
literal fears of my existence at that point in time. And Titty was like, here, I want you guys to watch these two movies and let's do a podcast episode on them. I'm watching these movies, and the first one we watched was literally just a dude getting incarcerated wrongfully and just tortured.
For 4 hours.
Like a long guy. And so for me at that point in time, those were my biggest fears. And I have to say, like, overall, I was trying to, like, put a full, like, bubble on what was fear for me overall in life. And fear for me overall in my life has always been feeling like the outcast. And just feeling like I don't, either maybe I'm one step ahead of everybody else around me, or I'm the weird guy who everyone's like, you're weird, considering my 8th grade yearbook that says you're weird. What can I say? You're weird. That was what she wrote.
So much for irrational fears.
Yeah, exactly.
My teacher, no, I'm kidding.
So that's kind of been for me, is like dealing with that. Like, I mean, I remember getting made fun of in 3rd grade because when we were doing our times tables, I was on like the 15 multipliers and people still weren't done with the 12s. And it was just like, you're the douche. Why are you like this? And then it was high school was, why are you so comfortable with yourself? Like I was really diving back on why I had such a fear of feeling like I was someone who had a big head, because I was physically told that by a girl that you have a big head. And I was like, literally, or like, are we talking like figuratively? And she was like, no, figuratively, but maybe literally too. But so anyways, like dealing with those situations, I've come to realize that I think it was more a fear of not understanding versus a fear of anything else. And it was really one of those things for me that I was like, why am I negatively viewing all these fears so much? But I would ask you, Tit, what has been something for you that you felt has been kind of a lingering thing, fear-wise, through life?
I would say mine, it's almost like somebody with OCD. I'm very aware I do not have OCD. I've seen what it looks like. That's frustrating. But mine, it's like the fear of mistakes. Fear that you miss something, constant need to double, triple check something. Someone might be like, yeah, you have OCD. But I feel like, making a mistake, whether it's like a social kind of mistake or something physical. When I was a machinist, it was like, I was that guy who's coming back like every 2 seconds when I started. I'm like, hey, is this right? Is this right? They're like, you're thinking too much. And I've been told that by many people is like, you think too much. Like you don't really need to worry about it. Just jump right in. That's been one of the things since I was a little kid. Did this little Adlerian experiment where you try to track down, we did it all together, I think, in the room.
Yeah.
But you try to track down what your earliest memory is. Mine was kind of a fear-based memory. Like, I did something out of turn, and that was my earliest memory. And as time goes on, you try to figure out what's like a different thing that you can remember, try to do some healing. And eventually I was able to find some other stuff that supported a different narrative. But for me, it's always been try not to be, like you said, behind. You don't want to be behind. I don't want to, whenever Derek and I were going to school together, I was like, I do not want to be like the last guy in the room. I don't want to be the last guy. I'm like, I don't have to be the first guy. I just don't want to be the guy at the back of the line. So my fears, they seem to always fall into the pattern of either doing a mistake or being behind or being the dumb guy in the room. So it drives me forward to try to challenge those things, to just not be caught off guard, and just try to know what you can inside the box so you could think outside the box type of strategy.
Yeah, that whole mentality of like, I feel like those were, people will look at them and can look at them as negatives, like, oh, I'm fearful that I'm going to be the last guy in the room. But I feel, why can't fear be a positive motivator? Like, why can't we look at it as if, oh, okay, don't want to be the last guy in the room, but I shouldn't look at that as like, I'm fearful of being the last guy in the room. Okay, because I have that fear, that's going to drive me to then become a person who maybe I wasn't envisioning myself as originally, and would become something different. And then, oh, whoa, I don't even recognize myself now. Oh, this is interesting. And you've surpassed that fear because you've taken yourself to a different place. And that positive thought behind the fear that is ultimately more looked at as negative in our society was that driver that got you to that place, and or turned you into a better survivor, and what I would take as survivor of your society, survivor of your friends, and just everything that we just get bombarded by as a kid going through school.
Yeah.
Look at you, you gorgeous.
Hey, what's up?
What do you fear? Where do we start?
Where do we start? I fear a lot of things. Like, did they cook my chicken all the way through in my DoorDash order? That's one thing I worry about. No, I think the biggest thing I've dealt with is the fear of unknown. I feel like I've been in a survival mentality growing up, and it's been something hard that I've had to try to boot for myself. It's one of those internal struggles. But I feel like, living in the present's a really important thing for me moving forward, just because there's a lot of these great things that happen to me, and I feel like I'm so caught up in worrying about those either going wrong or what's the next day going to come, that I never get a chance to actually sit and appreciate the things that are right in front of me. Like, I think I talked to both you and my girlfriend about like, oh man, I want to accomplish more in my 33rd year than I do, or my 32nd year than I did my 31st year. I'm not 33, I thank God. But
Jesus year, baby.
oh, well, hell yeah. Oh dear baby Jesus.
I always say that.
Yeah. So, thought process there is that, like, I didn't even get a chance to recognize like the accomplishments I had. Like, I had so much. I got a promotion at work, and I made more in excuse me, oh my god, I made more in like sales than I had at my job, things of that nature. And like, all these great things happened, moved into a house, and like, those are all great accomplishments. And for some reason, like, looking back over on my birthday, like, of the last year, I'm like, oh man, I just want to do more. Like, podcasts get better. All these things are happening, but all I'm thinking is like, man, I really got to go out and accomplish something. And I think the thought process there for me is like, fortunately, I'm just focused on like what happens if those things end up going away, or the fear of the unknown of like, what if it all goes wrong? Like, there's those like the easy tidbit of like, okay, cool, but what if you flip it, and like, what if everything goes right? Like, that mentality is so tough for me. I don't like when people say that, specifically because I don't align with that mentality at all. Like, oh yeah, you look at it like, oh man, you're so worried about all these things that could go wrong, but like, what if you just put your head down, lived in the moment, had faith in yourself, and things ended up right? So yeah, that struggle's there for sure. But I think the idea of like not knowing what's in front of me next is a fear of mine, just because I'm protective of what I have. And the hope is that I can actually get over that and start to enjoy the things I have, because I work really fucking hard for them.
Yeah, you do. You do. And that is crazy for us. Like, I know that I've done it too. You sit there and you think, like, when your birthday comes around, you obviously perfect time, end of the year, perfect time, or a birthday, a passing of a year, perfect time. You start having those reflections and you're just like, I want to do more this year. And I've done it before, not sit there and go, well, what have I done in the last year? And like, I look at this podcast, and that was something that like I had wrote in here, and I ended up taking a lot of it out because I had put in one point in time, I fear that I still haven't found my team. And I'm like, we were sitting here on Wednesday and I was like, oh my God, I got a fucking great fucking team that I'm working with right now. And it makes me really happy. And like, I think my fears came from feeling like I wasn't doing enough, or fear that like every day not striving towards that thing is like not going after it. But then at what point in time do you sit there and go, hey man, what you're doing takes a lot of freaking effort. And like, it takes a long time to try to transition into that different mentality of just also being willing to come on to a podcast and just say, hey, this is my shit.
Yeah, it's almost
and
like
I don't give a shit.
Yeah, it's almost like trying to find the pockets of courage in those moments of fear. Like I look at it, like, you're cool. You're like, yeah, you're worried that you're not going for it. You're like, oh, that's what I want to do. I'm worried that I'm not fully invested going for it. I'm worried that like I'm gonna fuck something up if I go for it. So like, I know Brandon said like the mistake thing, and I think that's another thing that like has kind of haunted me a little bit, is like the fear of failure. And like that's kind of a weakness that I'm not very fond of me, is like the fear of failure. Like, it's such a stupid thing, because it has nothing to do with yourself. It has everything to do with other people's perception. For me, is like, I don't care if I fail. Like, fuck me. My opinion doesn't matter at all. To me at least. Like, the way I've looked at it. But like, I guess on the other side is that fear of failure is the worst one, because you're like, man, how many things could I go out and accomplish, or these different hobbies or lifestyles that I could be living in, if I would just like not worry so much about, what could go wrong.
Right.
And it's funny to hear you, because you're on the other side. Is like, man, am I fucking trying hard enough to fail right now? So I guess like, and you're right, trying to find, so in retrospective, like my last year, like the pockets of courage are like, cool, like, yeah, like you think like you're not putting yourself out there to fail enough, but like, I mean, as far as I'm concerned right now, we got an F- on our fucking podcast, and not for the wrong ways. It's just like, we're not fucking monetized. We're not setting, we have goals that we want to accomplish one day. And like, there's these things, but like, it doesn't happen overnight. So like, the way I look at it is like, us showing up, it's not a failure. I know it's not, but like, it kind of is, in the sense that like, we just show up every day. We don't care what comes of it, and we take it on the chin and move on the next day. Just knowing that what we're doing is like, we have faith in ourselves. We have faith in what we're doing, and that's all that should carry you.
It just keeps moving us one step at a time. And I know that for me, like the fear of failure was always coming from that. We've talked about this before, of putting a bad light or shining a bad light onto your family. Like at one point in time, I mean, I shouldn't say at one point in time, I should say at every point in time, when I would be leaving the house, my dad would be like, you don't represent just yourself, you represent this whole family. And I've talked about that before on this podcast, to where that, like, going out and doing the streaming stuff. Okay, I know that I was on a bike, and like, I'm trying to like, okay, there's positive things behind that. But there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about from my 20s where I self-medicated myself. And I honestly believe that I'm here still because I did it myself, and I didn't allow other people to step into the realm to tell me what I needed to do for myself. And I don't mean that out of a disrespect to, all these people who could have been there for me, whether it be a psychiatrist or whether it be, antidepressants or any of that kind of stuff, which if that all works for you, please, that's great. That's awesome. I'm not taking anything away from Big Pharma. But self-medicating myself, like through my 20s with just marijuana, and just that allowing me to shut down the brain, because I don't know, and I don't want to say that this is 100% what I believe, but my fear comes from that this might actually be the truth, is like I'm kind of on this wavelength right now that our mind is actually the devil, our spirit is our ability to connect to God, and we are the being that just gets to experience the duality between the two. Because if you sit there, and Eckhart Tolle in his book, The Power of Now, says it, and he sat there at one point in time in that night and was like telling himself, like, I can't live with myself. But if I can't live with myself, then that means there's two of me. Well, then, where is this second version of me? Hold up. What's the second version of me? And then you start to dive into all these other people who have like tell you that you're not your mind, that you are more than just your mind, and all these, mind, body, and spirit work in unison to create what is your existence. And so for me, it was always this fear that I wasn't going to that I was going to get to the end of the line and that I had done everything incorrectly, basically, and just shit, now I got to play the game of life again. But then I thought to myself, like, I had a fear of that becoming all-knowing. And I like to think of it as like, if you got this like spectrum, time spectrum, to where this would be like the existence of the universe coming into fruition. And this is the end of time, where the universe completely understands itself. It knows itself in everything. There's nothing it doesn't know. Well, the only place for that to go technically would be, all right, well, turn the power button off and start back over at the beginning. So if you're trying to get all the way to that end where you know everything, you're connected to everything, you've taken yourself to these spiritual levels of unlike any that anybody has ever talked to you about. But why'd you rush? There's so much to learn in that time. So that's where I was like, it's time to slow down, man. Like, if you come back for 40 more incarnations, who gives a shit? That's 40 more opportunities to try to do all this different interesting stuff as a human or in existence. But the fear came from putting a bad light onto my family, or sharing those things that I want to share, of talking about how, like, weed really kind of was a nice thing for me to be able to shut down that mind, so that it wasn't always like in my thoughts now, the devil constantly telling me, you're not good enough, you're not this, you're not going to be able to succeed. What happens when you don't do this? And I was able to shut that off and do things and grow and become and experience things that, like, when I was growing up, man, I was joking with Senior at work. I was like, he goes, oh, you probably gave your parents a run for their money. I said, I'll be honest with you, Cap. Like, I was a super nerd. Like, I didn't cause any problems for my parents until my dad found weed in my car, or in his car, when I was like 19, 20 years old, and woke me up, whipped the pill bottle at my head basically that day, and was like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, oh, I'm fucked at this point. And so, but that was true. Like, that was something that I had done that was really stupid. Like, it really was. And I knew how stupid it was in the instance of the time. But it was like that. If I'm here now at 32, and I don't mean to keep fucking running on here talking about this, but if I'm here now at 32, and I have a lot of friends or acquaintances who took themselves out before we were 21, then I take a lot of toll to that, like, fighting those battles for 10 years by myself.
Yeah. Fear is such a mental thing, and I think you're dead on with the demons that live in your brain. Like, it's true. Like, I don't. The biggest step I've made for myself is to stop trying to identify with my thoughts, and I'm doing a horrible fucking job. I'll be the first to admit, but like, understanding that isn't a representation of me, that everyone has a brain, a computer processing a million things all at once. Like, just like, imagine if like a laptop was just used specifically like to play fart videos, and that computer just identifies like, I'm just the fart laptop. Like it's not the computer's fault. Like it's just doing what it's told. Like it's just doing what it's there to do. And like that's the way I look at it. Is like all these random ass things come into my mind all the time, and like for me to like hone in on one or something, like you said, like those self-deprecating thoughts of like, oh my god, man, like I'm not good enough. This will never pan out for me. Like that shit's so tough to overcome. But if you can just take a step back and realize that's like, oh, that's just like instinctual. Like that's just like it's just kind of built in there, and I'm bigger than that. I'm stronger than that. I don't identify with that. Like those are where I can see the most success for me. And like that fear of like you mentioned, I know we mentioned like what do you deal with on a daily basis. Like that was the one major thing I wrote was that I won't learn from the mistakes of myself, my family, my friends, and not have like anything to show for like, cool, like I would hope my dad, and like the way he raised me, it's 100% true. It's the same thing your dad probably did, was to make sure that you're not making the same mistakes that they did. That was the biggest thing for my dad. That's why I went to private schools. That's why he was so hard on me. Like those things were, we'll get into another portion is like, is fear healthy? And like, I think there's definitely a little bit of healthy fear because in the fact that like my dad instilled fear on me very early on of like, I'm going to make sure you don't fuck up. And the only way you can fuck up is you fuck up to me. Like you're answering to me. I will not allow you to have to answer anyone else. You will answer to me and nobody. And that's like, there was something, sure, I'm sure there could have been a little more like, give and take in that situation growing up, but it did keep me out of a lot of trouble. And my dad was like A1 fucking troublemaker growing up. So I just think a lot of like, dude, he was the guy. There's a reason my dad was like, all right, dude, like the second I can go in the military, I am leaving. And like those are things where, I'm not sure what my dad's mentality was like going to Marines, but I think a lot about like fear of like, what am I going to become if I keep going down this path? And then, he has kids like myself, my brother. It's like, okay, cool. Like I'm going to make sure they're not even in that situation where there's no like, what's next? What's next for me if I keep going down this road? Like, thankfully for me, I was never put in that situation.
That's a wild concept of thinking about is just like, you are this kid who just wants to experience life and you're just trying to like, you're here just starting to feel out everything that's around you. And you got this person who's just like, I already know the fucking path, pal. Okay?
You imagine watching you're watching movies with Brad and he's like, this is how the movie ends. And you're like, fuck, man, I'm just trying to watch the movie. But you're trying to watch the Shrek 2, man. I know what happens.
So like that was like, you don't, I don't know, maybe some of us can do it early on, like find a respect for that. And I think we had, somewhat of an understanding of what was going on in it. Maybe later on, now in our 30s, we can definitively say, no, I'm able to debunk the puzzle of what was happening there. But going through that was like, Dad, I'm 13 years old, bro.
Yeah.
I don't want to go rake fucking leaves right now, man. I want to go ride my bike and maybe throw some freaking rocks down the creek, dude. I don't want to go rake leaves right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pops.
Yeah. But I guess it's seeing like there be instances like growing, especially like 18. Like I didn't drink before I was 18.
Same.
Nothing. No drinking, no smoking, no nothing till I was out of high school. Honestly. Like I think maybe trying to think of the time where Ryan, John, and I got a case of beer for the first time out, Ryan. So I don't know if were you there? I don't remember. I think it was like just us three. And like little things like that, like starting to like actually grow up a little bit. But that being said, like even in that pocket where you're a legal adult, like I still lived at home. So like that's when I got caught with weed for the first time. Like that's when I like my dad's like, are you fucking drinking? I don't think. I was pretty good though. Like I genuinely really didn't drink too much until I was 21, and then I fucking turned it on. Dude.
Yeah, we went hard.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, what, this is what tequila does to you, dude? A whole bottle of that. But even through that point, it was interesting to see like that relationship with my dad, because I commuted from home in college, and like you could tell he was trying to allow me like this wiggle room to still like experience and do the thing. Like I could still go over like the boys' house on the south side and things like that. That was okay. And he gave me that wiggle room for sure. And I did enough to on the front end of like working and going to school and taking care of my shit that if I did that, then I must be going down the right road. But that being said, like I still had to answer to like, oh, you're going to hang out with that guy who's getting drunk in the movie theater. Can't you just go watch a fucking movie? Yada, yada, yada. And like, you think about that and it's like, okay, why? And it's okay, probably because he's seen that guy before. There was a guy like that back in his time who would sneak alcohol in the movie when you're underage and get hammered. And now that guy's 35 years old. He's still getting pissed drunk everywhere. And like, he would make sure he instilled that fear into me. Is like, A, you have to answer to me. And B, you could become that guy. And you don't want to be that guy. See that guy over there on the corner of East Ohio Street? That could be you. I don't fucking want that to be me. And like, no offense to that guy. Like, it's just like, it was a very, very, I don't know the word to say, but like, it was just something that was instilled early on, but especially in the adult years, became like really prevalent. Like, this is the make or break time for you. And without like, and I respect you as an adult, but like, you have to understand that like, that fear isn't so much of like now answering to me when you become an adult. It's now you have to answer to the repercussions of life.
Yeah. You're no longer protected by me.
No, yeah. But he was lucky enough. I got like the first 4 years of like, he wasn't lucky. I was lucky enough to like still see those like first little hurdles of like actual adult life and like getting pulled over 100 times for driving too fast or tried to sneak out to, you know, go get fucked up with my friend. Like that just, those are all fun things, but you have to understand the repercussions. And unfortunately, I wasn't very good at that.
Oh, yeah. After I was just like you, I had my first beer with my dad at 18. We went away to Barbados. I had a beer with him on the beach. That was cool. But after that, dude, I was like, whoa, okay, here we go. This is fun. Went off to college and was like party central. Had a blast. And came back and wanted to become this like absolute badass in engineering and just wanted to be this whatever, and started to go down this path of like, oh my God, I am exponentially depressed. I hate myself. What the fuck is going on? This sucks. And I was in such a weird limbo, and this is going to be such a huge dive into Zach today because I was in such a weird limbo because the industry that I worked in was constant drug tests, and, you know, you had to constantly take a drug test to get into different facilities. You could be random grabbed. Like if we went to, say, a U.S. Steel or somewhere else or something happened, or you could be random grabbed and then sent down to the infirmary to get a drug test. And it's just like, I'm fucked. Because what happens at this point? If I'm the guy who failed the drug test, like now what's going to happen? And probably nothing, honestly. Like it would have probably been, okay, you're fired from here. You go get a job from there. Not the end of the world. But to me, that was the epitome. That was like, I remember how upset I made my dad and how stupid of a decision that was. But I was diving back and forth with like, I can't stop these thoughts that are inside my head. And I'm trying to learn all these different techniques. And now, like, with the sauna, with the ice baths, with the cold showers, with the meditation, all these things that were not a part of my life at 21, but the things that were, the vices that we did have, which was the biking or the marijuana or whatever, was there, and they were prevalent and able to be used. And it was like, what, am I going to be a jackass and not use the tools that are in my bag right now? These are the tools that I have. I don't know about any other stuff. I honestly would love to know, because I don't remember when I found the first like spiritual person on like social media or any of that type of stuff, because starting to actually take a look inside and not constantly be so focused on the outside world was when everything changed for me.
Yeah. I remember when I got Lyme disease, that's when I started looking inward, because I was fucked up for a bit. And not only like my like body, like mentally fucked up, like not the most killer relationship at the time, just not a lot going on. I remember I used to take my ex to the gym, because I only had one car at the time, because I just didn't have a car, and take her after work, and I would just sit in her car while she worked out for an hour, as opposed to just paying $30. I was broke. But I had no issue buying like a few beers at the get-go down the street and just sitting in the car and drinking 3-4 times a week.
Yeah.
Waiting for her. And like just little things like that where like I I had to like face myself eventually. It took getting knocked off my ass to do it, but like I remember listening to like podcasts actually where like a lot of like would help me. Like there was one dude that I would listen to and like just very introspective, but in the best way of like, I'm a complete fuck up. I'm a complete this, yada, yada, yada. I'm just trying to make it through. A little bit of kind of what we're doing in the sense of like, we will be lucky if we ever figure it out. But it isn't about figuring out. It's about the journey in the courage to do so. And then understanding that is like, cool, man. Like, it's okay to accept that you aren't where you're supposed to be, or you at least feel like you're not supposed to be here. Or like, there's a better version of you out there. Like, of course there is. There's always a better version of you out there. You could be, we can all strive to be the perfect person and we'll probably fall short 100% of the time.
Mr. Stoic is so quiet over there because he's just come from a constant love. Everybody already knew exactly what they were doing in life. He's just an absolute fucking sexy badass. And everybody who listens to this podcast constantly comes to me and goes, man, that titty guy, man, he got his shit together, dude.
No, I don't.
No, but I think
I
like
love you, baby.
I'm
Love you too,
interested in
dog.
like the tip perspective though too, because like it does come from a point of, the fears for me again of the unknown and like, what if I keep going down this path, or what if I don't make the changes I need to myself? Like that's a big like daily fear for me. Is like, man, am I really holding myself accountable to like fix those things about myself that really bother me? I could only imagine. It might be like cleaning my room. I'm not very good at that, but I can only imagine what a clean room would feel like. It's like the same thing as I would just get over the shit that worries me on a daily basis. It would probably feel amazing, but I'm not quite sure because I've literally never put the fucking time in to do it. But I'm interested in your perspective because you do come off very like, we were actually talking about this behind your back, Titty, of like, of like, you're so like, I feel like you show up for people and yourself. You do a good job either way. My perspective knowing you for most of my life, but like, there's also this like, juxtaposition, like, man, this guy always shows up, he's always constant, but I feel like you're kind of like me and like the heart of the sleep person, like it's hard for you to like hide the way you're feeling a lot of the way too. So like I'm interested in like the balance of that for you, and like especially like shit that you deal with that plagues you. Like how do you find the ability to continue to show up for people and come off as like this stoic type person?
So while you guys were talking, there's something I got to plug in, make sure I'm talking into this. There's something that I feel is necessary to plug in. Respect to my old pediatrician, Dr. Brungo. But told my
This is
mom.
another RIP.
Yeah, another RIP, Dr. Brungo.
Touchdown celebration.
Did a little Tim Tebow. No, I'm kidding. But something about this guy is fantastic. He told my mom. She didn't tell us till years later. So for anyone listening who is a parent or gonna be a parent, he told my mom the best piece of advice is give them the opportunity to fail. And for us, that happened young age. We played 3 sports a year, all the way up pretty much till high school. Till high school, we were playing 2, and then it went down to 2 sports. But I've always had a lot of opportunity to fail. One of the great examples was football. I don't know if Derek knew this. I wanted to quit after day 1. I was like, that was terrible. That felt awful. We had to run up these super steep hills, and I had asthma. One of the reasons I went into football was try to break myself, get stronger for like my asthma. It feels terrible whenever you're running with everyone else and all of a sudden you have to stop because you can't go on. That honestly was one of the best experiences I had. And as far as physically, it felt like you're going to die. I thought I was going to die. But you had to basically stop what you're doing. I had to rip off my helmet, my shoulder pads, everything just to be able to breathe again. Because we were running on dust hills. It's crazy.
So it's a lot for like a 10-year-old child to do.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh,
There was a lot going on there.
It made it feel like it was going to break you. And I feel like that's some of those moments that are important are you need to feel like you're going to be broken. Kind of similar to that Count of Monte Cristo. That guy, he was in a place of complete despair, and he felt like, guy comes into his room, he's talking about God. He goes, oh, there's no mention of God, and you're a priest. And I think moments where you feel like you're going to be broken can serve as such a huge teacher. I feel like those are really necessary. I take that with me now. One of the things that are my biggest burdens are also one of my biggest assets is fear of failure or fear of what people are thinking. One of my biggest fears is that someone's going to take away something from you and talk shit behind your back that's not true. And I feel like that's one of my biggest fears. And I try to not give an inch of like when I go to work for management, I try to make sure that I know everything that's going to be happening. And it's impossible to know everything that's happening. Just my job and the role that I play, it's impossible to know everything that's happening around the city that impacts me. Like it's insane. But the catalyst that drives me forward is you got all these people counting, they're turning towards you. And I just realized when I saw somebody who's mentor to me, I'm like, don't forget people are turning to you like you're their football coach. Forget that. Like you break down some barriers and boundaries, but don't forget there's a lot of people that they're counting on you and to turn to you and see you as the person who's the guy. Certainly me and someone else, we split the workload, but I try to make sure, and so does he, that we know everything that's happening, everything that's going to happen, and have a plan A, B, C, and sometimes even a D plan. But it's crazy to think like the very thing that I kind of hate about myself also is such a huge coping strategy. Like that, those thoughts that sit in the back of your mind and they torment you. You got to go do this. You got to make sure that this is covered. It all protects you from the shame or embarrassment or guilt of showing up and not knowing what the fuck's happened. So I feel like my biggest catalyst is those times where I have failed early on. Those things, they push me to learn what about myself I want to defend against and what things I want to bring in. And then what other things that I hate about myself that are actually huge assets.
So do you do a lot of preparing and planning, or is it just I kind of fly by the seat? I kind of know what already I need to do.
It's both. I'm very glad you asked that because it's I try to prepare, try to map things out. I try to have visuals. I want to see what's in front of me. And then I also do a lot, I call them audibles. My coworker and I, we're just always ready for an audible. We're like, we try to lay out the patterns. I mentioned this later on, but I try to lay out the patterns, understand the terrain. So in that way, you can have as much as you can. It's like building maps. So you're about to go into the woods. You're like, hey, you have a map, but don't forget to bring your gun because there could be a bear. Like, you should see me whenever I'm walking around and we're in like full operation mode. On Sunday, we'll be in full operation mode. I'm strapped. I'm a walking office. Every pocket I have, and this is since it's cold, there's a lot of pockets.
Yeah.
Almost every pocket I have is filled with something. And then, you know what? Things happen. Things go wrong. Just bust out a pocket. I have something ready to go. So I would say in those cases, that thing that really I've hated about myself a long time of double, triple checking, the only reason those things still linger is because they're useful.
Yeah.
They're always useful and it comes up. And then I joke about this with hoarding. I have like a bunch of shit in my trunk, a bunch of unnecessary things. You know, they're still there. As soon as I take them out, I need them. Oh, yeah, like I got all these hand warmers. I got a full Cobalt tool set. And then there's been 2 times this year already. I didn't need the tool set for probably 99% of the time. Both times I took it out, I needed it immediately.
Yep.
And I'm like, yep, this is why. This is why I am the way I am.
Yeah, you're just getting toyed with, dude. I like what you said, though, about failing on your own merit. Like, I think, like, putting yourself out there and just failing in general because you decided to, through, like, outside instances, outside of just, like, allowing yourself to overthink everything and just become a failure to no one but you. Like, if I were to go out and just, like you said, like, letting football break you, like, I think, like, especially rowing. Like, rowing, dude, I went there day one, and I'm like, this is the dumbest thing that anyone could ever possibly do. This is the largest strain I've ever had put on my body. It's 5 a.m., it's freezing, I'm covered in water. This is so stupid. But what it did is it helped build up, like, this coat of armor on me that, like, man, if I could overcome this, I can do whatever the fuck I want. So, like, with that being said, like, I was able to put that out there, and, like, that helped build up that mental fortitude where nowadays, like, not to say I'm a mentally weak person, I just think there's some room for growth. There's this, thought process that I need to allow other things to break me, not allow myself to break me. through overthinking or those thoughts in the back of your head of like, just not putting yourself out there and things that you wish you would. And you mentioned a bear too, dude. We talk about fear, and I think it's all fucking peas and carrots. When you stare a bear directly in the face, that's when you know fear. Like, oh man, what if I don't have enough money to cover, my gas this week? Like, yeah, that's a fear people have. But have you ever been in the woods of Colorado and looked to the left and there's a fucking bear next to you? Because that's what fear feels like.
I do not know what that thing is going to do.
You were fucking sleeping on the job, dude.
I don't know if it can hear me. When I say, please don't eat me,
I don't taste good.
Yeah, you're not going to like this.
I'm a lot of fast food. I'm too greasy.
I just take one bite and it's like, nope. I'm done.
Oh, geez, this is not good for me.
I'm screwed on my berry diet.
Yeah. Oh,
They're
yes.
going to see me coming. They're going to smell the
Oh,
smoothie
my
inside
God.
me. I'm
Bro.
getting eaten alive, dude.
Dude, all they see is like a 6-foot something walking smoothie. just your jar just walking down the trail.
Just smells like fruit coming a mile away.
Oh, man, yeah. You smell like fruit without the smooth.
That's true. I want to talk about the fear being having such a negative view in our society. And the only thing I wrote under this topic was, fear to me is so widely used to trap me into thoughts that do not serve me or my journey towards Christ consciousness. And that was it. That was all I wrote. I was like, oh yeah, this big old profound thing of why does society look so... And that's all I wrote.
I get what you're saying. No, like fear is like, that's the enemy. Like, and I did write, like, there's also a lot of benefits to fear, in my opinion. But I think that fear is like that relationship you have to, that can go toxic very quickly. In most of the time it will, but you do have this ability to wield it into like the greatest superpower in the world.
Oh yeah.
But like on the surface, you're right. Like it's this ability of like understanding that the fears that you have in front of you are most likely the things that you need to overcome to get to where you want to.
Yeah. Like pissing your pants at 13 years old because you wanted to keep playing football and didn't want to go. You were like, nope, I can hold it. And then you piss your pants and you're like, oh shit. I'm going to lay in the grass here, guys.
I'm good.
I'm all right. Oh, man, that play really hurt. No, I just pissed my pants.
Yeah. Joey hit me so hard, I pissed my pants.
It's exactly what happened. It wasn't Joey. Yeah, it's exactly what happened. And then you're just like, oh, my God. And so that day, never once did I say, I'm going to hold this. I was like, nope, I will piss right behind that bush right here, man, before I hold this, and then piss my pants. Now I got to try to figure out what to do. These piss pants the rest of the night, dude. Oh, we're going mini golfing? I'll just flip my pants inside out. Why'd you flip your pants inside out? I dried them in the bathroom because I spilled something on myself. Yeah, oh, interesting. But no, I don't know why fear is looked at so negative. I like, for instance, that was something that was like so stupid, so subtle, but it was a fear of mine to feel embarrassed, or that my buddies were going to go to school on Monday and be like, Zach pissed his pants when we were playing football on Saturday. And so you are over just like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to walk away from this right now. Like, I don't want to tell everybody that I need to go to the bathroom and that we can, I need to time out. Like, you can't call a timeout. Like, what a jackass, And so that day on, never once did I say, like, I'm going to try to hold this, man, and make it. No, we were going. So like, that was a positive fear in my life that taught me a lesson that was like, dude, why are you trying to hold your piss? This is stupid. And so I really won't understand why there are people who look at it as just completely negative, but then I also don't understand who I used to be. I really don't understand who I used to be prior to 28 years old, because 28 years old is when I had this crazy transition all happen to me. And 28 years old, like going into that year, was when going into my 28th year, I was like, I'm going to try to get myself healthy and do all this stuff, because I had all this fear of like dying early or not being here for a long time, or that like I was going to die early and not get to experience all these things that I wanted to do. And so I was like, I'm going on a health grind. I'm going on a health kick. I'm going to get myself healthy. And then that's when TikTok came out. And I was sitting here, honestly, the whole time that we've been doing this podcast, trying to wrap my head around or remind myself of where I first was, influenced or saw some type of spiritual stuff, and it was on TikTok. That's where all that interesting stuff started to come to me. I started having these weird dreams around 28 whenever I decided I wanted to take my life into my own hand. And basically one night I was sitting there and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I'm so depressed. I hate my existence. I loathe the world. Why do I hate these people that are around me for no reason? I just can't stand these people. Not my friends, but like the people who I'd go to work with. I'd be like, can't stand. What the hell is your problem? Like, what's wrong with you? And so I just had a weird epiphany, man. I don't have this crazy cool story of like, I did this or I did that. It's just one night I decided I couldn't be with myself anymore and just decided I was going to start one day at a time, try to make some changes. And that fear of not being able to live with myself anymore is what's continued to drive drive me to this point now at 32 and be 4 years into my life. Like I know that I lived a life prior to this, but the mindset that I have now is fascinating compared to what I feel my mindset was at 24 years. It's weird. And I know it's like, I've known you this whole time, bro. I don't think you've really changed that much. But there's been so much going on behind the scenes of like, we've hung out for the last 10 years together. And I've done crazy amount of growth in these 10 years being around you guys. And I feel that that's something to me, like I wrote in here, like I had said that something that I had feared was that I didn't think that there was other people here who really, really understood. But that was me robbing those people of that opportunity to potentially understand me, because I'm not out there just openly sharing with you guys all the shit from my past, from the years prior to you guys knowing me. That's where I think the concept of what I had wrote about not having people in your life that you feel like completely understand you only opens up the opportunity for more people to come into your existence. And like the person who I was prior to meeting you guys, like those people from high school still probably look at me as that person who was this guy who was just laser focused on becoming the best at lacrosse and shot up 4 inches from sophomore year to junior year. And because I shot up 4 inches, my fat ass frame was no longer a fat ass frame. And now all of a sudden it was like, whoa, who's the new kid? That's what the girls were saying. Who's the new kid? And it's like, I've been here since I've been here forever. Like, this is bullshit. And so like that whole transition period, like you guys weren't there for those times or to see me in those lights of what it is a high school setting or that type of stuff, or who I might have been or whatnot, or the lessons I was still learning. So it's cool to think that you might have these transition periods in your life to where you're constantly finding those new pockets of people. And like, I look at us and I'm like, dude, I fear not having this in my life now, respectfully. Like I fear not having you guys in my life now. And because I know that like, as much as all the good people that I have in my life, and we have a lot of amazing people in our life, I really, really, really effing cherish doing this shit. And this is like, to me, this podcast is like, I love doing this shit, man. I don't know why. I love making myself look like a complete ass for other people to like dissect and do with whatever they choose to do with. But having that level of just not caring anymore, and it's not a not caring, because you do care. You do care about who you are. You care about what you're doing. You care about your message. But it's more so a fear of just, why am I fearful?
Yeah, Yeah, the biggest leaps I made were like exactly that. Like where the alternative would be like, oh, what else am I doing? Like, what am I just gonna keep going down this path? Because that's where I've had the biggest changes. I remember like my little brother asking me like when he at some point and over the last it was probably I don't know right maybe a year after COVID, I was sleeping on his floor and then I moved into an apartment and then 2 months later COVID hit and like I made a very conscious decision like as like we got the lockdown shit happening was like I could very easily sit here and put on 20 pounds and get hammered and play video games every single day. And I flipped that and turned it into I'm going to run more than I ever have. I'm going to get myself into a better shape than I ever have. And like made that conscious decision because like I was like, man, I know what the alternative could be. And I can fear that. And that motivation of like, oh man, like you know what you're capable of. So why don't you just flip it and make it the alternative? And I think that stemmed from like a couple years back from like that Lyme disease bullshit I dealt with, and then like getting out of a relationship and whatnot was like the times I was able to use fear as motivation was when I was at my lowest, and that's where I actually have become like the most powerful version of myself is when I have found myself at my lowest, and it's crazy for me because like that fear of like going back there you would think would like motivate me, and it's tough because I'm a very like comfort based person. I like my comforts. I don't like waking up to do things in the morning. I don't like doing coach. I don't like, and no one likes doing those things, but my God, getting over that hurdle is so tough. But when I have found myself being able to like Dragon Ball Z that fear into some like powerful ass like beneficial shit was when I found myself at that lowest point where like, all right, dude, like you were worried about failing, and apparently worrying only got you to fail so fucking hard that it took you years to find out that you were doing it. So now what's the alternative? It's like, well, to fucking figure it out the other way. And that would spin it into some positive. But I think when I think of those instances, I need to, moving forward, as I was kind of reflecting on this episode, is like find a way to channel that energy every single day. That's tough. Like that, oh man, like rock bottom type energy. Like I don't want that type of mentality, but I do want to find that pocket I find myself in that instance and want to have that hunger to make myself better every single day without having to deal with the smacking the fucking bottom of the universe.
Yeah. Well, you look at things like, and I was told this story through a TikTok, and I've never gone to his actual physical YouTube page, but like Wim Hof. His whole big premise, at least this is what I was shown, so I hope this story is correct because I didn't fact check myself before this. This guy basically had a really traumatic situation all happen to himself, and he went into the ice cold water trying to take himself out, trying to not come back from what he was doing. He was trying to end the suffering, and through trying to end the suffering, found all this like crazy new existence, and like the dude is Wim Hof. Like he's the breathing guy. Like he's shown everybody like what we are physically capable of, some Dragon Ball Z shit. And so those fears, like I don't know if I had one of those types of like, I don't want to phrase it as come to Jesus moment or come to God moment or what, because that's not how I want to phrase it. But like, I think what I want to ask Tit is like, do you think that most of all this stuff, and for us and for anybody out there and me, like I feel like it was unawareness, like just everything stemmed from, okay, if I'm unaware, like your fears that you were talking about, you're aware of, okay,
It's all I think about.
I can go this way. If I go this way, these are the things that could potentially happen. So having that awareness of those situations, not saying, okay, this fear is just going to drive me and is going to eat me alive. I feel like that's the difference between looking at fear as being both sides of the spectrum, which is what I feel like we've said. Everything has the yin and the yang. There's got to be the positive and the negative to everything. Like too much going in an ice bath you can't sit in the ice bath for too long because you're going to get hypothermia and freaking die. So too much of a good thing ends up becoming a bad thing. And so if there is no balance, I think all of this comes back to balance and awareness. So if you can have that balance yourself to be able to mitigate those fears into not always being looked at as like, these are killing me, versus these are actually making me into the best version of myself. Oh my gosh, I didn't view myself as capable of doing those things. I viewed myself as not capable of doing those things, but that fear of not being able to accomplish that is what ended up turning me into that. You're like, whoa, holy shit, like, what a freaking secular cycle, or however you want to phrase that, of like, what a bullshit scenario to get to a positive process that is.
I think one of the things that it's crazy because you're literally pulling some of the thoughts out of my brain as I was sitting here. But I think one of the things that holds us back, gives us a negative vibe on fear, it's the unknown. It's the fear of the unknown, and it's the pain of the fear of the unknown. There might be possible discomfort, like you're saying. It might be bad, but those things are what holds us back. And I wrote in my notes, one of the things that we do is, just like you mentioned with preparation, is identifying what the fear is. And I think fear is too general. It really doesn't capture, because that fear of the unknown is possible fear of hopelessness, powerlessness. So it's easier to just self-sabotage and say, well, I'm just not going to play the game. And I think what you talk about is like exposure. Look at Muay Thai fighters. Derek knows exactly what I'm going to say. You know what they do? They beat the shit out of their shins, like the living hell out of it. So then one day they might be able to like kick a bamboo tree and just break it instantly, because they've just embraced that pain, that suffering over and over again. But they have the intention behind it. They're not just hitting their shins because like, oh, this will be weird and painful, but they do it over and over. So in that way, when the day comes that they're actually in a fight, someone goes to kick their shin, nothing. It's not going to break. But I put down some of the other ways that we can identify it. There's portraying it as danger, risk, having reservations, anxiety, panic, dread, hopelessness, lack of faith. Those are just to name a few, but those are some of the feelings that I feel if I'm in a state of fear. But I try to identify what that is, because if you don't identify it at all, then you have no way to challenge or embrace it. Granted, I'm not sitting out there as like a police officer firing guns at somebody who's firing them back. I'm not facing those fears on a daily basis. But I think, my small first world problems, those you can not easily, but you can at least arm yourself, put on armor, or you grab a sword, all speaking figuratively, to help yourself go and face those demons.
Yeah. It's funny thinking about that too. Is like, it just sounds like preparation's another huge thing. Like, you think about it though. Like, I mean, maybe don't think about it at all. I'm trying to convince myself, because I'm someone who just kind of just, yeah, dude, I'll just show up. It'll figure itself out. Sounds good. Okay. Like, I think about going camping with Zach. Okay, I'm ready to go. We get there, like, hey, Zach, do you have this, and this? Yeah, dude, I got you. Because Zach's prepared, and I'm not. So, like the instance of, like, I'm thinking about, like, work. I have to go to work today, and I have to, I have an appointment with somebody to show them around. Cool. I'll go in there. I'm like, I hope I do this. I hope this. I hope he doesn't do that. I hope he doesn't ask this. This is tough. Like, oh, what if he does this? What if he doesn't like it? Like, those are all situations that run through your head, but those can also be served pretty well just by being prepared too. So I think, like, whether it's that, being not only prepared, but living in the present moment too, not so worried about what will happen after, but understanding that you bring something to the table. That's why you find yourself in the situation. And then also being prepared with the knowledge that you have to take on whatever battle it might be is a huge factor as far as alleviating fear. But I'm never prepared. So, like, that's one thing to keep in the back pocket, of one thing, why those thoughts may arise pretty often.
I think the line goes, if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail.
Ben Franklin.
Mm-hmm. This but if you fail to prepare, you're going to prepare to fail. But if you're constantly just strategizing, if all we're doing is sitting over, if all I'm doing is sitting in my corner and well, if I did it this way, or if I did it this way, well, this could go to here, to here, to here. If I constantly sit there and all I'm doing is preparing, then I've given myself none of those opportunities to actually fail and learn from those situations. So like, yes, it's the first time you show someone around. We'll use that as an example. You're not going to know what the hell all these people are going to be asking, or like the bullshit that they're going to, oh, this guy brought up this guy brought up that, like all these different things that different people are going to bring up or different people are going to notice. If you sit there and just, I got to make sure that I figure out every single calculation of how might they ask me questions, then you're never going to take any of those opportunities to fail. And well, I lost that opportunity, but you know what? I learned these 3 things from that guy. So yes, it's 100%. I am the friggin' preparation motherfucker. I am on that
Yes,
shit,
you are.
man. But if I never take the step or the leap to start actually allowing myself to just fall flat on my face, then I'm just always going to be I'm just always going to be cooking, man. I'm never eating.
Tick can compare. That would be the worst salesman in the world. Not worst, but one of the worst salesmen if they never just set all the preparation aside and picked up the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, just sheer execution. Like you're just in the calculation mode. There's no execution at all.
Calculations.
Calculations.
But no, I want to give both of you guys an opportunity. Tit, do you have anything to share in fear before we ride out here?
I think good opportunity to plug in a lacrosse story again.
No, shoot
Like
it.
I've definitely mentioned it on one of our podcasts before, but there was an opportunity that came up. It was my first semester at Slippery Rock, and I played lacrosse. I played at a ragtag team in high school for 2 years, and I'm going to go join people who've been playing since kindergarten at college level. So when I get in there, I would confidently say I was one of the best left high school, but our team was not great. So it was not saying much.
Yeah.
Got up there, complete ego check. It's terrible. My left hand was dog shit. My cradling skills were good. My passing, comparatively dog shit. Shooting, comparatively dog shit. So everything that I came in with, I was better than the people I played with until that point. By the time we got to a Keystone Conference title game, they're like, all right, Smitty, you're in. I was like, no, I'm not. It was like 4 minutes left in the game. We're within 3 points. It could be anybody's game. So I was like, no, I'm not going in. Eventually I did get in, but I was terrified because I'm like, I'm going to lose you guys the game and everyone's going to be pissed off at me. They didn't care. Like, they were like, you are going to be the future of this team, not like on my back,
Yeah.
but you are going to be in it. So like, get your ass in the game. And I got in, nothing terrible happened. I got, we won the game. Next year though, the entire off season, I was like, fuck that. I don't want to experience that again. So I went up, Derek knows Field Garvin, went up and played wall ball. You might even know it, but played wall ball probably at least once a week. I was going up there on Sundays. I was using my left hand. I was simulating the game, trying to pretend as if like somebody was there defending or playing offense against me. And by the next season, I went in, I put in the time, put in the effort. They put me on the best guy in practice, best guy in the game. I'm like, no, I'm not good enough. Doesn't matter. You're going in anyway. And eventually, by the end of the season, I'll brag for my team, but we had over 90 points, scored 4, and under 10 scored against us.
Damn.
And then we also credit to my goalie. Goalie was an animal. But the next time that title game came around, instead of me being like a little bitch boy who's afraid to go in, my ass, I remember I picked up the ball. It was time to clear it. All the people started to back off. They're like, oh, defenseman, back off. This is going to be easy. I saw someone running across the field, chucked it all the way across the field, assist from back by where the goalie is. I threw it all the way down because they thought, oh, there's no way. He's a long pole. He can't throw the ball that far. Bullshit. I've been practicing all year. So I threw an assist in the title game.
What a
Hell
G,
yeah.
dude.
That's awesome, man. No, I just think that moving forward, I try to take something from every episode and then typically go, cool, that's a great thought, and I forget about it by the time I get home. But that being said, I think fear-wise, like just making sure that you're not being a victim of your own existence is the truth. Like it's like I found myself holding myself back in so many ways of just like that comfortability of like, oh cool, like I can just sit here and do nothing. But you're just sitting there do nothing. Like just think about like I was picturing somebody you're talking about like never actually acting upon something, and like you just hold like a toddler up and they're kicking their legs and they're like want to run. Like imagine how far they'd run if you just let them, like, and that's kind of where I find myself in that same like stagnant position of like, man, I just like moving, like there's shit fucking happening, but I'm never just put myself on the ground and going. So, not falling a victim of my own self and living in that fear of understanding that like every fear you have is something that you're just creating on your own, and being able to overcome that is honestly pretty much, to me at least, one of the easiest things you can do if you just get out of your own way. Stop overthinking, be confident in yourself, be confident in what got you to where you are every day. And that should alleviate a lot of the things I seem to find myself plaguing. So that's something I want to take forward.
My pieces of the puzzle here for fear for myself and to share would be, I gotta stop putting weight on things that honestly don't need weight put on them. Progress, success, these type of things, yes, they can be measured, but in the reality of things with our existence and the fact that I now 100% believe that I am an eternal being. I 100% believe in reincarnation. I believe that my essence, my energy, my light, my spark, whatever you want to call it, goes on forever. So at the end of the day, putting so much weight onto these things that are happening or things that might not be happening that I feel like they should be is so foolish to me now, knowing what I know and being where I'm at. So I would say try to not put so much weight on things that could potentially be looked at by other people as meaningless.
There's one other plug off of that I have to throw in.
Please.
And it's fantastic. Something I've found by mistake. Pun intended there. But found by a mistake. 2015, we did some research, and basically what we found of it was different than what we were looking for. We found people took a self-esteem assessment before a motivation assessment. For the most part, they scored worse in motivation. So the more you think about it, sometimes it's funny, we have that balance that we talked about with preparation. Sometimes that could be the doom of you. If you do too much thinking, too much analyzing, you're going to stop yourself from ever moving forward.
Yeah.
So I think that's good to think about.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. This was a kick-ass episode on fear. We got Brandon, we got Derry, and myself, Zach. And as always, we say don't trust us, trust yourself, because you got all the answers. We just got to unlock them together, baby. All right, y'all. A little salty, little spittoon on the end there. But yeah,
seasoning.
That's a little seasoning.
Spicy.
Little Old Bay. Got a little hint. All right. Appreciate y'all for listening. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks, y'all.
Later.
I want to thank you guys again for tuning in to episode 34, Fear. You don't get goosebumps? Don't hesitate to catch our next release, episode 35, Milestones. Have you heard all the different ways to live? The group saddles up and discusses some different interesting things of like, what is a milestone for us? What milestones have you passed? Do they hold any meaning for you? What are some milestones you've accomplished or not accomplished that feel shaped you into who you've become? Woo! All the different ways to live? Man, I don't know. Here we go. Once again, thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it. Take care.